Emergency episode of the Drive-Thru. We have breaking news. Chris Evans has been cast in Avengers Doomsday. According to the Wrap, it's currently unknown who Chris Evans will be playing, although we have a couple of theories here. Ricky Flex, I want to get your instant reactions. We just came from coaching a hockey game. I turned to you and I looked at my phone and I said, hey, he's back. Chris Evans in the MCU. What's your initial reaction?
My first thought was, okay, Marvel, you're bringing back RDJ. You had to bring back Chris Evans. You did it. That's like kind of was my first thought, because Captain America, or shall I say Captain Hydra, Supreme Hydra, perhaps, coming back here, it kind of had to happen because you opened that nostalgia door with RDJ. And you can't just bring back him as a Tony Stark variant and not bring back Captain America as a Steve Rogers variant, really. You can't really do that. So it makes it because Iron Man and Captain America, Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, Chris Evans, RDJ, they were the two pillars of the MCU for 11 years. So you can't bring back one without the other. It just makes sense. So even though I think it goes back to my argument in the beginning of the RDJ, of like the nostalgia play and whatnot, if you bring back one, you got to bring back the other.
Yeah, so if you did it for RDJ, it was only inevitable that Chris Evans was going to return as well. However, I am a little shocked that it's happening with this project and Avengers Doomsday. I always knew, and I think everyone always knew, he was going to return at some point, whether it was going to be a project on him returning the Infinity Stones in Avengers Endgame as like a spin-off type of TV series or movie. I thought definitely he was going to show up in Secret Wars, but the idea we're getting him in Doomsday was the surprising aspect to me. It's like they couldn't contain themselves, and I think this kind of that was the one shocking part. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if I agree with that. I'm not like, oh, I think you're wrong. I'm more just like, I think it had to be Secret Wars. I really do. I don't think a spinoff I know Chris Evans is struggling right now, career-wise a little bit.
He needed this bad.
And it kind of was inevitable for him to come back just because of that. He already leaned into it in Deadpool Wolverine. He even was it was in Free Guy in a Captain America type of cameo a little bit. So he has not left Captain America. If anything, he's leaning more into, this Marvelization of his career. He's just going back into it. And Secret Wars is the perfect spot to really just accept it, because I don't know if we'll get into like, all right, who's the next returnee of the MCU or the next person to return or to announce that they're returning. But it just seems like for a project like Secret Wars, that is the one where it makes sense, versus like them trying to avoid spinoffs, reducing Disney Plus projects, reducing extra characters that don't really matter to the MCU, not core characters, B-list characters. They're trying to reduce that. I think it just makes sense for it to be Secret Wars.
He's got to play a villain. He cannot play Captain America again. And I say this, or he can't play the Human Torch because he got absolutely eviscerated by Emma Corrin in Deadpool Wolverine. But I think he has to. I said Emma Corrin because I didn't remember Sandra Nova's name. That's how fast I have forgotten about Deadpool and Wolverine. You saw right through me, Ricky. But Cap has to play a villain because he can't be Captain America going against a variant of Tony Stark or RDJ again, because we got that with Civil War. So I think it's going to be him, and there's been a couple iterations of like quote-unquote evil Captain America. One is Hydra Supreme, and I did a little research here. Hydra Supreme is from Earth 61311 that eventually makes his way to Earth 616. Here, I think with the multiverse saga, and you're having Chris Evans return, you have to add some spiciness to it. You already added him once again, spiciness with return of Johnny Storm. Yet again, we're going to see him come back just as a different character. I think he can't go one-on-one with RDJ again. It has to be him as an antagonist or maybe a henchman of Doctor Doom. I think that would be fascinating. And you build them up as a tandem working together. as opposed to like almost like the anti-Avenger type of dynamic. And also what was brought up on the news today, I think it was also from the Wrap, Anthony Mackie will be returning for Avengers Doomsday. Makes sense. He's about to lead Captain America Brave New World, but it doesn't feel like that is coincidental that he gets announced the same time Chris Evans gets announced. One new Captain America, one former. We talk about the juiciness of RDJ going against some of the former Avengers, particularly like Spider-Man potentially in the future. Now you're looking at old Captain America versus the new Captain America. I think it's just setting up different dynamics that fans can really like lick their chops at and say like this is something that they've always wanted to see, like Anthony Mackie versus Chris Evans.
Well, is that something we've always wanted to see?
No, I meant like a Captain America versus like an old one versus a new one. And then
Okay.
like the Anthony Mackie and the storyline of You're Not Captain America that goes back to Captain America and the Winter Soldier series. And now is a huge like theme of this new movie. Now it makes sense that, okay, now you are Captain America. Now you got to face the old one. I think that is juicy.
Yeah, that is juicy. It is interesting though, because in Endgame we do get the Captain America versus Captain America.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much.
We did get that, and like he goes, right. I could do this all day, and then Steve Rogers goes, oh God, I know. Like
he has the line to the Hail Hydra, almost like a callback to real deep comic book lore where he is Hydra Supreme, and now he probably will be that character.
Yeah, right. Because that's been circling the social media airways right now. That little meme, Hail Hydra. Like he's got to say that in Secret Wars. Yeah, that's a must. And I agree with you, everything you said basically. And I just think I think for me, I had a sharp because we all kind of knew he would be coming back, right? We kind of after the RDJ thing, like RDJ, that was a shocker, right? There was like, oh my God, they're actually bringing him back. Panic, maybe is that a panic move, whatever. Here's like, all right, post RDJ, a few months later, and Chris Evans, little struggle here, struggle bus. Yeah, makes sense. But the Anthony Mackie news coming less than an hour after that, I think is twofold. One, the fact that they had to announce that is bad.
Yeah.
I see your reaction. Isn't that right?
You would think like it's like to me, it's like no matter how Brave New World does, Anthony Mackie will be in Doomsday. That's the way I kind of saw it.
Right, exactly. Like even if it's like a terrible movie, which it doesn't look terrible, or he doesn't do as well as maybe we're hoping, then it's like he's going to be in this movie. He's our Captain America. Like Chris Evans is not taking back the mantle. Don't get your hopes up, which also signals the Hydra Supreme Hydra character even more so. But I digress. But I think the other thing that this announcement of Anthony Mackie returning for me is like, I think people, including myself, might not be rooting for Anthony Mackie in Secret Wars.
This is a huge, like, I literally thought of Anthony Mackie before they even had the tweet or the news break that he's joining Doomsday, because I'm like, this could go one of two ways. Marvel can do all they can to have him defeat like Steve Rogers, this evil version of Steve Rogers, and make you root for Anthony Mackie. But like if you're not buying him after Brave New World, and then like, okay, now we got to have him defeat the old Captain America, and we still don't buy it, it's like, what do you do in that situation? You know, I think these next two movies for Anthony Mackie is so massive for his status as like Captain America. You know, it's like it is the guy who's perfect for the role. We're going to make him a villain. And if you're still rooting for him, I think it's maybe just the power of Chris Evans in that role. You know, I don't know what else it could be. I don't know what else you could do to kind of like catapult Anthony Mackie to being a centerpiece of the MCU in the future.
Right. So for me, it's like this news is like, all right, positive. If you're going this way, just go like head on, fully into it. I get it. The Anthony Mackie news, I was like, crap, you really had to announce
this. Still living in the shadow.
Yes. It was kind of like a panic, like you know how like agents of like a bunch of like agents like send stuff to Adam Schefter to kind of like promote.
Yeah.
And like basically like say like, oh, my guy's injured, but say like he's done 216 consecutive starts. He has this many passing touchdowns.
Show this video. Like show this workout video.
Yeah, something like that, right? I feel like this was like Marvel saying like, crap, like We need to announce that Anthony Mackie is our guy. Like it's like, or a better analogy maybe is like, I don't know, like a quarterback that might not be doing well, and the backup people are calling for the backup, and then the quarterback gets injured, and then the backup comes in, plays well, but then the starter is ready to come back, and people are like, we don't want him to come back. It's like Marvel's like trying to assure everyone, like, no, Anthony Mackie's our guy. Like he's our guy. We don't want another guy coming in. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a better analogy.
It's hard because like I'm trying to think of the same type of thing where it's like, you know how Tom Brady was like rumored to go to like the 49ers for so long?
Yeah.
And it's like Brock Purdy and takes him to the Super Bowl and like he's having an okay season this year. It's like, but if you announce Tom Brady was like interested in going to the 49ers, you're like, ooh, it's like this guy, he's okay. He's not the best quarterback in the league, but you have a chance to get the greatest of all time. That's the kind of way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, someone that's recently retired or out of the role, Chris Evans, Tom Brady, who was phenomenal superstar, and the guy that the guy that you currently have, he's good, but like you could have a 7-time.
Dude, you know what it is? It's the Lakers and Phil Jackson. That's what this is. Like where like Phil Jackson is like so great as the Lakers coach, and he would take a hiatus and like, hey, I'm done. I need to retire for my well-being. Want to be with my family. Go out in Montana, live on a ranch, just like Chris Evans is going to make terrible streaming movies. And then they hear the call. Oh, the Lakers are struggling as a franchise. The MCU is struggling as a franchise. Whoever is the coach, who was, I don't even know. It wasn't D Fish. I forgot who the coach for the Lakers was. It might have been Byron Scott. I think he was also post Phil Jackson. But whoever was the coach during that time, him coming back and saying, Phil Jackson saying, this guy's coming back. It's like, oh, we're gonna keep this other guy on the staff though, like, or whatever. It's sort of like that. It's a hard one-to-one comp to find in terms of sports because it feels like it only could happen in the MCU.
Yeah, it does. It does. So I don't want to jump the gun here, but I feel like this is like the other big nostalgic return that we're gonna get. That's A-list. But there's a couple here that I think is possible now that you're opening the door for. And I don't want to jump the gun, but if you want me to list a few or if you have a few, I can go through a rundown here.
That are the next ones, like to
say like, oh, here's one. Scarlett Johansson coming back.
Oh, yeah, you think already? Yeah, ScarJo. That's especially she's still, I think, going to be executive producing. I forgot what. A Black Widow project or something in the future. I forgot what it was. She's still somewhat involved. She'll be back, no doubt. Who else?
Ultron.
He's coming back. I saw that tweet. Someone tweeted that James Spader has had basically 2 roles since 2015. One being Ultron. The other one is the guy from the Blacklist, and that's it. He's coming back for the Vision series. Vision's coming back.
Oh, Vision. That's check.
Wanda.
Yep, check. Dormammu. It's Doctor Strange.
Is he officially coming back, or are you saying like he probably will?
I think he probably will.
And he needs a better big screen treatment than what he got in Doctor Strange. Exactly. It's almost like a second run at it, and also it's opened the floodgates, like you're talking about. Once RDJ did this, and now Chris Evans, now it's like, okay, where do we draw a line? Especially when it comes to like a project like Doomsday before Secret Wars. Like, who else could we see return multiverse variant of the characters?
Well, you want to draw a line? We could draw a line right now because I think No Way Home was kind of like that was the one that kind of opened the door to say, oh, we should do Secret Wars. So like Tobey Maguire, I think, is the line.
Yeah, but that will be Secret Wars.
Right. And I'm thinking Secret Wars, by the way, only.
Yeah, like Logan's, like Wolverine will be there. Seems like with the success of Deadpool Wolverine, that was an inevitability. We were even talking about like him showing up again in another project prior to showing up in Secret Wars. Do you see Ryan Reynolds made comments today too about Deadpool just being a supporting character in the future?
That would support our theory, right?
That would or wouldn't?
Would.
What's our theory? Remind me.
Our theory that like him coming into the MCU, he would do great in a supporting role in the MCU versus like him trying to spearhead the MCU. Like Deadpool's just not that type of character.
Yeah, but I was always a guy who was saying that I would have a hard time seeing Deadpool just taking up a couple minutes of screen time because he's so arrogant as a character and a guy who's breaking the fourth wall. It's like it could hurt like the team chem, honestly, if he's there. I think he could be that, but it's got to be like for like a chant like the example that Ryan Reynolds gave is that for a Channing Tatum Gambit movie. Like, yeah, you could do that, but I don't know if you could do it like Spider-Man. I don't think he could be a supporting character there, honestly. Legendary Star-Lord. He could do that.
Yeah, that would be a good call. Yeah. I think going back to the line, Tobey Maguire, like the Ghost Rider, Nick Cage, like those guys, done. I think that's like the line that we're thinking here for these return for Secret Wars nostalgic.
Nick Cage is bold. That is like the end of the line. Like that's beyond the line for sure, but something I would be okay with because it's Nick Cage.
And he's more open now to coming back into like he's being Spider-Man Noir. He's definitely likes to work. He would be open to it. I'm just saying like that just be kind of weird.
Josh Brolin, Thanos coming back.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's a good shout. You know what? I'll make a prediction, and it's not bold, but because the Chris Evans news, probably Supreme Hydra in some regard, and he kind of took over for the Red Skull. Red Skull not coming back. Hugo Weaving not coming back.
Yeah, he spent his play again. He already spent his please play again.
Yeah, Infinity War came back. He's not coming back again.
No, nope, cannot do it. That's a pretty good list so far, and we're probably forgetting a bunch of people that will be eventually showing up again. Like that, honestly, a line might be Tom Hardy, Venom.
Wow.
Venom is briefly in the new Secret Wars story. He's in it, and it's not a very major role, but he's in the story. Thanos is in the story.
I think Thanos is like up where I said Ultron and Black Widow.
And I talked about last time we had an episode. Please listen to it. It was the wish list that we have for movies, and we talked about bringing back the symbiote because you're going to have that 1-to-1 like on screen versus like the comic book you could put next to each other and say like, hey, we did it. The scene you're going to need Thanos getting eviscerated by Doctor Doom. That clip, that panel you always see posted where Doctor Doom is choking out Thanos and he turns to dust. That's from Secret Wars.
Yeah, and like I think we've talked about this, and especially with Jax. It's such a like Doom is such a powerful character, and that the panel or whatever that you're talking
powerful
about,
image.
Yeah, and we thought Thanos was crazy. You
have to have
Secret Wars is so important. Like that's why we've been stressing this for years now. How important this is, and how risky of a proposition Marvel's doing with these variants. And RDJ, Chris Evans, and whatnot coming back and making sure it hits because it's so important. Such powerful individuals, characters, they can't mess it up. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I still have my reservations about what they're doing here.
I can't even fairly evaluate like the MCU until post Secret Wars because it's all going to be a huge nostalgia play. And it's going to be like a remember the good old days with a slight twist.
That's the problem. Is because Secret Wars should be like Endgame. It should be like encapsulating an era.
Yeah.
Instead of it's like saying, "Oh, remember that great era? We're going to remind you about this again."
Like three phases ago, rather than like celebrating the current phase.
And then we know what we're going to do after that? We're going to introduce the X-Men and kind of kickstart another era. It's like, oh, we kind of missed an opportunity to peak again, Marvel. So I just think like Secret Wars is going to hit, I think. I just think it could have hit a lot harder. Similar, not maybe to the same extent as Endgame, but similarly.
You could just rename the multiverse saga the Nostalgia Saga.
Damn, that's pretty good.
That's what it is. That's what I'm going to call it from now on until we get like new characters being introduced, until we get Fantastic Four, but that's going to have probably Doctor Doom in it as well. And there's like people that are in Fantastic Four that will be, there's rumors that the Council of Reeds will be in Fantastic Four. And so that's where you're thinking, who else shows up in the saga? Iowan Grufford, thinking the original Fantastic Four. John Krasinski somehow returning from Multiverse of Madness. Council of Reeds, that's another situation where you're going to have a huge nostalgia play, rely on cameos. Man, but this is good for Chris Evans. Like I feel I'm happy he's home. and in a way, because he just wasn't doing it. It wasn't happening. Think about RDJ. He won a goddamn Oscar when he left the MCU. They're gonna be acting with each other again. RDJ is like, I didn't have to do this. I'm just getting paid $100 million to do this.
I'm getting private jets. I can get whatever I want from Disney, and
You're like a king.
Yeah, and you're desperate.
Yes, it's just they're at totally different ends of the spectrum, but they're both at least they're both going to be in places where arguably have the most successful characters they've ever played. They're coming back to just with little twists, and we're jumping and saying he's going to be the villain just because like we can't run back him as Captain America facing Tony Stark. You can't do that, you know.
And especially with the news that he won't be the Captain America in the movie.
It says it's unknown what his role is going to be.
Which, again, hints to not a Captain America. Because if it was a Captain America variant, they probably would have announced that. So not to the same extent as RDJ being Dr. Doom, but they would have made it a bigger deal. They are keeping it under wraps because they want it to be a surprise. Similarly, like they want to make it a surprise. Like, oh, hey, it's Chris Evans, Steve Rogers, Captain America. No. It's Chris Evans, but not that Chris Evans.
There has got to be some people thinking that it's going to be the Human Torch, and those people, get them out of here. That was a very Deadpool and Wolverine thing to do. You know, that's not something that you would recast him in Doomsday. You're not going to have Chris Evans come back as the Human Torch when you have RDJ coming back as Dr. Doom. And
you're not going to do that, especially after having the Fantastic Four the new cast just having a movie the previous 2 years earlier.
Yeah, and it's not like he doesn't own the role of Johnny Storm in my eyes. Like he doesn't own it. Like he owns Captain America. He's Johnny Storm because we haven't had another Johnny Storm. I know we had the other Fantastic Four movie with Michael B. Jordan, but it's not like Chris Evans is like, oh my God, hang it up in the rafters. Like him as Johnny Storm. Like I anticipate Joseph Quinn's going to be a better Johnny Storm than Chris Evans was.
Really? We'll see about that.
Chris Evans was good. He was good, but I don't know.
I think back to the analogy. I think Chris Evans was an all-star as Johnny Storm, but he's not a put it up in the rafters guy. Like Chris Evans as Captain America, RDJ as Iron Man, those guys get their numbers retired.
Yeah, him as Johnny Storm is like Gilbert Arenas on the Wizards. You know, like he's just like the star player on a team that barely makes the playoffs, like Agent Zero, great highlight reel, great one-liners, you know. But him as Captain America, he's a part of he's like D Wade to LeBron on the Heat, who's winning titles.
Yes, that's a good one.
That was a pretty good one.
But the problem is that going back to the jersey retirement analogy, it's like you have a jersey retirement, but then you have Anthony Mackie wearing that number so soon afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's it's kind of weird versus Johnny Storm. Yes, Michael B. Jordan, but there's been enough time with the Joseph Quinn one where we see Fantastic Four next year and we might have recency bias, but we might say, oh my God, he's better than the Chris Evans Human Torch. We might say that recency bias, but also because because he was great. But Anthony Mackie, just we've seen it now, Falcon and Winter Soldier. And Captain America, Brave New World, we'll see. But it's just so hard to live up to those expectations. So short from the time when we just had Chris Evans.
He can't. When I watched Deadpool Wolverine, I was thinking that Chris Evans can't channel it like he used to. He isn't as cool now as Johnny Storm as he was back then. He was the coolest man alive when that movie came out. You know, and now when I saw him doing it, he's doing a weird thing with his voice and his accent. He's trying to sound cool, but instead sounds like just an immature adult. And he's trying to be a guy who's grown up since the Fantastic Four movies. Didn't completely work for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it worked for me though, because he was kind of trying to tell Deadpool, who's very immature, and Logan, hey, I've seen a bunch of shit here. I've seen a lot. And you kind of are already mature in the void because it's life and death, and you can't really joke around too much, especially next to Deadpool, who is the loudmouth merchant, right? Whatever, I forget the nickname, but it's
Merc with a mouth.
Merc with a mouth.
Loudmouth merchant.
So you know what I mean, though. It's kind of hard to go up against, but whatever. That's not the conversation. I think
you needed this.
It won't be Johnny Storm. whoever thinks that, I think, is just delusional.